Welcome to the Sales Mindset Podcast. My name is Dennis DePasquale and Dr. D.
Hi, my name's Sam.
Yeah, Brian.
And I'll let you guys pose the question.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about your glass there?
Yeah, so so just a little backstory. I actually have 100 pint glasses, a little bit less than 100 pint glasses, and I just added to my collection for the first time in a while. What I like about this is the Sugar Skull, if you can see it. Mm-hmm. A little hard to see. It's actually from a brewery called Days Ahead, which is not what I have on top. Or the brewery is the Destill Brewery, Days Ahead. Completely irrelevant to why I wanted you guys to ask me about that. But I started out my collection of 100 pint glasses by stealing them, which not encouraged, obviously, at this particular point. But I was in college. I thought it was cool. I swiped a TGI Fridays glass. And I turned into a kleptomaniac. But after a while, I actually stopped swiping them and actually started asking for them. And I realized I can actually pay for them. And so, just like what happened with this glass today, eventually people will be like, you could just take it. I'd say, hey, this is a cool pint glass. I collect pint glasses. I'd like to buy it. Some places would actually sell them, but other places, they'd be like, no one's ever done that before. Let me ask around. I get varying different things.
Yeah.
And so I was at at lunch today at one of my favorite places, and I was like, look, I got to ask you, can I take that home with me? And they're like, yeah, I guess. I don't care. And, of course, I thought about that for today's podcast just because it's so important to just ask. And I think a lot of people don't realize how, whether it's sales or anything else, just asking will often get you what you want. And point two of that is, I just got a fence installed in the back there. And there were some problems with the fence. And I think a lot of people will be afraid to ask for things, so there are some problems with the fence. And to the credit of the person who put the fence in, they put it up in lightning speed. So where most places are saying it's 10 weeks out before you're going to get a fence in, they did the quote actually a week ago today, and the fence was up by the end of the day yesterday. Unfortunately, one of the things you'll see in business is you can either get it done well or you can get it done quick, and oftentimes the two cannot be done at the same time. And so there's some problems with it, but in particular some of the fences was warped because they weren't paying attention to the pieces that they were putting in. And so I was like, can you do something about that? Of course, if I didn't ask, then he wouldn't have done anything, and a couple $100 extra for a substandard fence, which I'm still stuck with the fence. The way the install for this particular fence is, I'm just kind of stuck with it, unless they do some major rip-ups because it's concreted in.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So, and I know I did something with that for you guys, and I want you to talk about your experience. The rejection project. The rejection project.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird one, and one that was it was the first experience for me where I had been given a project like that, just completely outside of any framework in class. Just go to businesses and ask them to donate to a local. Well, it's
they were doing the other thing, the door prizes. That one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it was honestly, people were kind of taken aback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just like, people don't expect, they expect you coming in for business and then just say, hey, can I speak to the manager? I'm here trying to, help and gain door prizes for this organization. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, sure, okay. Mm-hmm. And then, I'd give them my spiel, tell them what's happening. Like, it's donating for a good cause. And, most people were just like, yeah, no, I don't have anything to donate right now. And I honestly had a lot of people just open up and start telling me about their stories and their business. Mm-hmm. And this one lady, she kind of ended up was asking me for help because she was needing some money, and I don't know, she was a really cool lady, but I did not give her any money. But it was just
But she
nice.
asked, right?
Yeah, she asked.
Yeah. You coming out in a net negative on that one's kind of probably not the goal of the rejection project. I really enjoyed it actually. I went in groups, or we kind of split off into pairs or trios. And one of my favorite parts of it was going into a sausage place on Fourth Ave Food Park. What's that one called?
Oh, and Federbackers or
Yeah,
Something like that.
Feidenbachers or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's a German F name.
And we went in there and we said, "Hi, I'm Brian. This is Gabby. We're here from the University of Florida Business College, and we wanted to see if you might be interested in donating to an event that we have coming up." Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'd probably have to go and talk to the manager or what have you." I'm like, "Hey, before you do that, man, like I've never been here. What is this place?" And there was like so much like meat and cheese just like all around. I'm like, "Can I get a sample of that
Delicious,
sausage?"
right?
Yeah, it was. No, we were there for like 15 minutes. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a sample. I think they're relatively newish. So he, handed me like one thing. He's like, what do you think of that one? Oh, it's pretty good. I kind of like that it's spicy. Like, oh, if you think that one's good, you should try this one. And we had it back and forth for like 15 minutes. And then I felt kind of bad because my other two teammates, they weren't interested really in having the sausage. We were just there to like, kind of go like bang, 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 try to ask a few different businesses in Fourth Ave Food Park. I was like, I just want to try this sausage. And we were sitting there talking for like 15 minutes about the sausage.
Mm-hmm.
They did. I think they gave us a gift card as well, which was nice.
I remember that there was something, actually, I thought they were interested in actually doing more.
Oh, really?
And so what's really interesting about your story is how you actually started developing a relationship with them. It wasn't just, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to find your manager. You actually engaged them about who they are. Obviously, in a real sales situation, you're going to want to learn a little bit more before you walk in there. So, just for the listeners here, what this project is, it was based off a book called Rejection Proof by a guy named Jia Zhang. And the idea here is you actually had to collect no's, not yeses. And, it hopefully showed you that the rejection isn't a big deal. And actually, when you put away the pressure of getting that yes, you're actually a little bit more relaxed and more successful as a result of it. And one of the things I've noticed in that project is that people are more successful in the project than they are with the business development project, with the actual fundraising that they do for organizations.
Mm-hmm. There's something like really low stakes about it, like going in and not really expecting one way or the other. Even if you go in looking for rejection, I feel like nobody, even if you say that, nobody goes in specifically looking to get shot down. So you still try a little bit, but it's more so tempering the expectation. So you go in like, if I don't get it, doesn't matter. Like, I was already told that it's not a big deal if I don't get anything. Mm-hmm. It was a whole other thing, like going in and not being sure if it was going to work out or not meant that you weren't really nervous because like, I can't mess this up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I like your point about the store. I don't know the name of it. But not just being totally like, okay, where's your manager? Can I speak to them? Just like actually having a conversation with them, asking them about what they do there. Getting to know like about the store. If you just, that's much likely more likely to lead to success.
Yeah, I want to find the name of the store. I feel like we should give them a proper commendation for their lovely products.
I agree. I'm actually looking it up right now so that we can do this.
You're in Gainesville, Florida.
But just a nice acknowledgement of something that, a nice compliment, a sincere one, not like just...
No, it's delicious. And actually the customer service there is fantastic.
Yeah, they were super nice as well. The prices were pretty reasonable, and they were excited that I was excited. I think they get a good amount of business during certain times of the day, but I think we were there during their slow time, so they're not really doing a whole lot.
There it is.
And I was like, can I try everything? Like,
here we go. Fehrenbacher's Artesian Sausage, and they're part of a food park, so they don't have any. They've got like a bar that you can sit in, but you go outside, and of course there's most of the places. I don't think they sell any, but most of the places in the area also sell little craft beers. So you can crack a can of craft beer and
sure
enjoy a fantastic sausage sandwich from this place.
So if you're in the area,
check it out. Absolutely. So what I want to connect that to though is something called assertiveness training, and what it's essentially doing is it's making you confront your fears, which is a piece of locus of control. Locus of control has people confronting their fears head on. If you're afraid of going into an elevator, then what a clinical psychologist will do is they'll have you go and actually look at an elevator. They won't have you get in it right away, but they'll have you look at an elevator all the way through actually getting into an elevator. And, when you look at how some of the researchers from Bendora to Rotter have done locus of control and assertiveness and conquering your fears, which the fear of failure is severe when you think about it. A big piece of that is just looking it straight in the eye and saying, now I want you to go get rejected. So the goal is to handle the thing that you're afraid of happening during the regular project, so that you can see it's really not that big deal, not big of a deal. Excuse me. So, you know, they talk about how this works out. Now, this is, I think, good for our listeners to hear, in that when you tell someone a story, it's actually pretty effective. That's why people watch TED Talks all the time, because those TED Talks help people see what they can do to do whatever the TED Talk is inspiring them to do. But what the Rejection Project really does is it thrusts you in front of that situation where you are confronted with finding out that no is actually going, even when you don't care, when you put the minimalist of effort in, you'll get a 5 to 10% conversion rate, just because people are like, oh, sure, why not, right? And that's really critical for sales. So it's getting you to be a little bit more assertive and saying, I'm just going to ask for this regardless. And this can be applied anywhere, not just for fences and getting a sausage place to give you a gift card, but even in dating, just going out there and just asking for numbers or whatever it happens to be.
And you talked about that fear, like initial fear, and with asking for a sale, you know, when you start out, you're going to be afraid. You don't understand the process. And I think that lack of understanding really just feeds into it, and you're not going to conquer that fear until you understand it. Quick little anecdote. I've grew up on the water. I've been on a boat a significant portion of my life, and there was at one point in my life where we were offshore and we just hit these massive waves from the boat, and we didn't think it was going to be a problem, but me and my brother almost got flung out of the boat, and I developed a terrifying fear of waves. And so every time for years, when I saw a wave coming, I was literally just sitting there just looking at it, like I did not want to have a wave hit the boat again. And that's not how it was before, but I don't know exactly when I got over that fear, but it was just, it was probably once I started to get an understanding of how to drive the boat myself, and how to actually attack those problems that will come at you. But, you know, and I guess that's what I'm really getting at, is that understanding is going to be something that helps you once you get that, and it'll give you that assertiveness, and you'll be much more successful.
I definitely think one of the best things to remove the fear is, I guess, information, in the sense of, even on a logistical level, understanding your product, like through and through, that you're selling, the bounds of what you can and can't negotiate, you know what you're talking about, you know the internal structure of the company. That way, you know that you're going to be able to handle any question that comes your way. This is more on a logistical level, but I think already that's going to remove some fear. And all you're left with is that, I guess, call reluctance, that kind of breaking into somebody else's space, which you can also practice, and kind of prepping to build as much knowledge as possible that way. You can handle that side of things. You can handle all the logistics, prepare for everything you can prepare for before jumping into it. I think that's one of the best preps that I found as well.
Yeah. So your story made me think about mountain biking. And so I know I've got a mountain bike. I haven't actually hit it since I broke my wrist in 2019. But and it wasn't from mountain biking that I broke my wrist. But when I was mountain biking up north, so Florida, there's no real mountains in Florida. There's trails. One of the things that I remember was not working with, but I had a friend who was much more novice with his mountain biking. And when we would go out and do the mountain biking, I would just be like balls to the wall, just boom, go through the trails, the switchbacks, whatever. But he would be so much more timid because he was afraid. Well, because of that fear, he was getting into more accidents. He wasn't incapable of handling his bike. He was just more afraid, and as a result had more errors. And I have to wonder, thinking about analogies or metaphors or whatever, when we look at the mistakes that we make when we're afraid because we hesitate too much, instead of just plowing forward and going into it, just, sometimes it's better to go in and not care. Just do what you've got to do. And same thing with the boat. If you're more afraid, you might be more, I guess, prone to make an error with steering or whatever. A boat is far more expensive than a mountain bike going into these things. But the same thing with sales. You're so afraid of making an error that you come off as timid, and that can come off as unconfident about the product or services that you're selling.
Yeah, and those are kind of mistakes that are easily fixable and not ones that you're really going to learn from a lot unless you fix that timidness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of just thinking about like one of my my cousin's husband. He's a big snowboarder, and his way of thinking was just, if you're not falling, you're not learning. And so it's to that point where you're pushing yourself, not that you're afraid, you're pushing yourself to always be learning, and you're going to be on that cusp where, like, if you're timid, you're kind of making silly errors and not making the mistakes that you're learning from. But if you're doing everything right, pursuing what you know works, but then you'll find things that in that formula that aren't to perfection, you know.
So I'm going to take this metaphor just even a little further, because you're talking about skiing now. And I forget who was talking about it, but I remember someone talking about skiing. Maybe it was Jordan Peterson or someone else, I'm not sure. And they were saying, when you're skiing, how do you avoid the trees? Well, you don't look at the trees.
Yep.
Because you're going to go where you're looking. Same thing with cycling. You know, when I was on the triathlon team, when we did bike handling exercises, the big thing is you look where you want the bike to go, and that's where the bike will go. Same thing when you were getting, I don't know if you guys have motorcycle licenses, but when you're learning how to ride a motorcycle, they're telling you the same thing. The bike will go where you look. So be careful where you look, basically. So if you're looking at that failure, that's what you're going to manifest. If you're looking at the success, or in the case of the mountain bike, you're watching the trail, not the trees. In case of skiing, you're again watching the trail, not the trees. You know, where you're putting your attention to is where you're going to end up going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to the motorcycle one. You just reminded me. I ended up dropping the bike when I was doing my motorcycle license. It wasn't a full drop, so they didn't fail me, thank goodness. Like, they said if it was like a full drop, that would have been over. But it was like a, you know, slowly going down with like a couple.
I think there's
100-pound
one in
bike.
every class.
Yeah. Oh, there was a couple in mine. It was a very diverse.
See, that's why I took the
people.
Grom and not the Harley.
Yeah, and I'm so glad I was put on like the smallest thing that's barely a motorcycle, like 150cc or something like that. But the reason was I was like really nervous to get going, and I'm looking like straight down at the ground, or I'm looking like straight at like my hands and the ground and whatnot, like making sure my feet are going well. And I like looked down and just started falling instead of actually just moving forward.
Yeah, a powerful metaphor for life, but it's true.
Yeah,
where you will go where you happen to be looking. So what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on your success, or are you focusing on that potential for failure?
Yeah, and be confident with that direction you think you're going. Can't be timid.
I like to before I go into like a sale or something, or if like a public speaking thing, or if I was, you know, before gonna like ask somebody out or something, to pretend like it was something that was already decided that was going to happen, and like now I'm not even making the decision anymore. Some other being, my boss, my internal conscious, like already decided this is happening. And it kind of reminds me, I was watching. I've been listening to a lot of stand-up, and I listened to one of the John Mulaney stand-up things on Netflix. I know you guys have ever seen the bit. It's really good. It's one of his famous ones where he goes to the doctor to ask for Xanax, but he doesn't want to make it seem like he's drug-seeking. So he goes in and he says he has like frequent urination, and he ends up getting a prostate exam during the whole thing. And the way he described it was...
That sounds uncomfortable.
Oh, no, it is. Basically, he gets there, and when he gets to the point where he's like... It kind of dawned on me that at this point in the visit, like, if we're going to move forward, a part of his hand was going to go into my ass. And it was like a part of me was just like, whatever. This might as well happen. Like, that's a quote from it. And like I like to think of it that way sometimes, where if it's like something I'm kind of nervous about, I'm like, yeah, this might as well happen. Like, I'm removed from it. Like, I'll just go into it.
Yeah, you know, we're so focused on like what happens when we fail. Like, we're worried about what other people. A lot of times, we're just worried about what other people think about us. You know, especially you guys as students going out into the community, talking to all these businesses, worried probably about your reputation. And I remember, probably in a dating context, that it was actually brought up to me. But when I was on the triathlon team, I had one of the guys on the team was like, "Why don't you just talk to them? Why don't you just talk to them?"
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I was like, and I guess he could read the hesitation in my mind. He's like, "Dude, you're only going to be here for another 2 or 3 years. Who the hell cares?"
Yeah.
Of course, now I've been here for 13 years, but the point being, like, you're more worried about it. You get stuck on the idea that people are going to think about you from this one particular interaction, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
all.
Mm.
Most people are definitely way up their own issues as well to like really pay attention or care about what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's we're so focused on us and our world because we have to live with us and ourselves
Yeah.
throughout the entire day, year, month, whatever. But everyone else has their own issues going on. They don't care about us,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
You've I'm sure you guys have heard the I don't know if it's what it really is, but it was just saying like majority of people don't recognize any of the insecurities that you might have.
Uh-huh.
Like everyone would say in their own mind like, oh yeah, everyone can see this, everyone's noticing this, and then
Yeah.
if you polled all the people they saw, they'd be like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Uh-huh.
So people really don't notice all that stuff. Really shouldn't be focusing on all that. That's only gonna hold you back.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson for today. That's the real focus on today's podcast is don't be afraid to ask. You will most likely get what you're looking for, and even if you don't, who cares? The only thing you're going to get is a no, and no one's going to really judge you for it later. Any final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, just that no's not a bad thing. Just keep moving forward.
Go get it.